Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Amanda. This is a vlog of my experience as a late diagnosed autistic and ADHD woman. I also have total aphantasia and a memory disorder called SDAM, and I talk about all of these on the vlog. Today's video is going to be one of my 5 traits of autism video. I have 6 more of these on the channel. I have a playlist that you can check them all out. Basically, this list was derived from when I first started to suspect that I was autistic. Anytime I came across another autistic content creator or an article about autism or reading a book, and I related to a trait that was being shared from that autistic person's lived experience, I would jot it down in my phone. When the list got to be about 50, I called and got an evaluation for myself. This all started because I was doing research because I suspected my kids might be autistic, but I had no idea that I was also autistic. And the 3 of us got diagnosed autistic and ADHD within a month of each other. And that actually happened just over a year ago. So on October 10th, which was 2 days ago, was my 1-year diagnosis anniversary. So I thought today was a good day to do another one of my 5 traits of autism, because if you're suspecting that you're autistic, hearing the lived experience from other autistic people is just the best way to go about finding out if you are autistic. The DSM-5 can be pretty confusing, and another thing is autistic traits and the diagnostic criteria can be different. A lot of times, a lot of autistic people will share a common trait, but it's not necessarily documented in the DSM-5. They are like separate. You have to have enough of the diagnostic criteria to be considered autistic. I do have some issues with the DSM-5. The language of the DSM-5 is continually evolving. Like in 2013, they took out Asperger's as a diagnosis. And so anybody who is now, who was diagnosed Asperger's is now just autistic 1. We use levels autism 1, 2, and 3. And most people in the community no longer use the term Asperger's because it has ties back to Hans Asperger, who was a Nazi. And so a lot of autistic people now do not want to identify with the term Asperger's. There are some people who were diagnosed with Asperger's, and because they got that as their official diagnosis, they have personal ties to it. And so they feel personally that they still would like to use that term. And, I'm not going to tell anybody how they have to identify. I'm just telling you like kind of updated terms. They also took out the high functioning and low functioning words from the DSM-5. And I have a video that explains why functioning labels are harmful, and I'm glad they were taken out. My hope is that the next DSM will stop using terms of, will stop diagnosing in terms of deficits and pathological words, because a lot of our things that are considered deficits are really just differences. Basically, like the DSM-5 says that autistic people have a deficit in social reciprocity. I can't say that word. But really we just have a difference. Basically, we are being measured up against allistic, which means non-autistic people, and we are considered inferior. We're considered that we have a deficit in communication, but we just have a different way of communicating. And I think the more research that is done and the more realization that autistic people are very valid and not disordered, just different. But this will take time because all research was done, again, comparing to allistic as the standard or normal way of living. So let's get into it. The first one on this list is that autistic people often have a hard time not interrupting a conversation. This can also be true for ADHD, but it's still common for autistic people also. And that is because of 2 things. One is sometimes a lot of times autistic people have trouble knowing when it's their turn to talk in a conversation. And again, this is from Autistic standards. When you have a group of autistic people talking, the conversation flow is much more natural. But when an autistic person is trying to communicate with an allistic person, sometimes our breaks in conversations are not the same as an allistic, so we will interrupt at an inappropriate time. A lot of times, this is also because we might get really excited about an idea or something that we want to share, and we just want to say it really fast because of that like enthusiasm. Or like for me, I'm also ADHD, and if I don't say it, I will forget what I was going to say like really fast. The next one I have, number 2, is I will often repeat sounds. This is called echolalia. And one of the cute ones that I have is that when my cat Echo, who was just walking around in this video a minute ago, for some reason, whenever he meows, I have to repeat his meow. When he meows, and if sometimes I don't say it out loud, like I'll do it in my head, which is really bizarre because like I said, I have total aphantasia and I don't actually hear sounds in my head, but I have thoughts. But he will meow and I will go, I'll say meow in my head, or I will say it out loud. And it's really so hilarious because we named Echo before I was autistic, not before I was autistic, I've always been autistic, before I was recognized and diagnosed as being autistic. And so I think it's really funny that out of all the cats that I've ever owned, his meow is one that I always echo. And we named him before I realized that I did that or knew anything about echolalia. And I do this with a lot of things. Another one is my kids' online school. The abbreviation is WACA, and they call it WACA. And every time somebody says WACA, me and my kids both will have to go waka, waka, waka. Like, you just can't say it or hear it without doing the waka, waka, waka. And the thing is, sometimes that's like non-appropriate in conversations. Like if I'm talking to one of their teachers and that term happened to be mentioned, I can't say waka, waka, waka. But because I do have a little bit more social awareness than some autistic people, I know that I can just like say it in my head. Some autistic people have to say it out loud, and you will hear them doing these echolalia phrases, and it's like it's an itch in their brain. It doesn't feel complete unless they can do the sound out loud. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know. I think it's like just a form of stimming, which, is another common autistic trait. It's just a verbal stim. It's a sound stim, and certain words just make you want to repeat them. I don't know if this is quite the same, but I often, when I'm driving and I'll see a sign, I have to read it out loud too. I don't know if that's the same as echolalia, but it's a pretty common thing that I have to do. And it's funny because just the other day I was like going on a walk with my husband, and there was a sign in someone's yard, and we were in the middle of a conversation, but I saw that sign and I had to read it out loud in the middle of the conversation. So number one, I interrupted the conversation to read that sign out loud. And my husband was like, what did that have to do with what we were talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. I just noticed the sign and I had to read it. Like, let's continue the conversation. I didn't mean to interrupt. I wasn't really even aware that I did it. It just was so natural because around my husband, I'm not as, I don't have to be masked, and I just let my autistic weirdness fly, right? So number 3 is that we can get really frustrated when we ask for more information and either the same information is repeated back, or we're told just to wing it or figure it out. Our autistic brains need all the information available. We get very anxious if we can't have all of our questions answered. And sometimes the questions aren't logical to an allistic person, but they are something that we have a question about. Often for me, if I'm going to a new place, I need to know everything about parking. That is one of my biggest anxieties. And I have called places before and I'm asking, do you have a parking lot? Do you have street parking? Is it paid parking? And I've had people on the other end of the phone, which I also really struggle with phone calls, but that's how much I need this information before I will even consider going. And they're like, we've never had people ask this question before. I don't, like, yeah, there's parking, you just find it. And I'm like, no. I need to know, like, how bad is the parking? Like, I don't know why, but that is one thing that will cause me so much anxiety. Like, I will not go somewhere if I am worried if I'm not going to be able to park when I get there. And I think a lot of that has to do maybe with timing. Like, so like I said, I'm ADHD too. So a lot of ADHD people have time blindness, and I will try to time when I get somewhere so I'm not late. But if I have to calculate in how long it's going to take me to park, that just throws everything off and I just get really anxious. And I don't know. There's not necessarily logic. It's just like a deep need that I have. So if there's an autistic person in your life and they're anxious about something, there's echo back there. If they're anxious about something, try to get them, if they are verbal, to ask the questions that they are concerned about, even if they're worried that they seem like silly questions. And if you can get those questions answered, their anxiety can go down. And it could be something like can I bring my stim toy to this event? Or there could be a lot of times with me, like, can I bring my safe food into the event? Because like I will get worried if I get hungry, and I need to know that there's something that I can eat there. Number 4. So autism is often genetic. So my kids got diagnosed with autism right around the same time as I am. And then after my diagnosis, we soon realized that my mom is autistic and her dad is definitely autistic. Here's my little elephant mug today. Now, of course, my grandpa is old enough that, getting diagnosed at his age really isn't something that he'd be interested in. And I'm not saying that you can't get diagnosed at any age. Like, if you are concerned or worried or interested in getting diagnosis, no matter what age, I think you should, even if it's self-diagnosis, just so that you have that concern. There he is meowing. I had to let him out. You have the right to know why your life has been so difficult, because undiagnosed autism is very frustrating experience. And I've spent my whole life trying to figure out what was wrong with me when there's nothing wrong. I'm just autistic, and that's different. Different, not disordered, but it is considered a disorder in the DSM-5. But now again, I'm not a medical channel, so I do get a little fuzzy about this, but so there's definitely a genetic component, but there are some, I think, environmental factors that can start autism. I'm not sure if you have to have the autistic gene and then an environmental factor can trigger it. Like, I don't understand that part of autism as much, because it's very clear that my line of autism is very genetic. Like, we can follow the genes down. But there are parents, I don't know if it maybe sometimes skips a generation. There are parents who are allistic who have an autistic child. And I love it when they listen to actually autistic adult voices instead of medical journals to get some understanding about their autistic child. And sometimes I do wonder when I'm talking to some autistic parents who have autistic children, I'm like, have you investigated whether or not you might be autistic too? Because the masking can be so, what's the word? Like, I can't think of the word, but like I mask so well that, you know, I my words are getting trapped in my head. Okay, don't get flustered. Okay, so this is what happens sometimes when I get stuck on a word, like, then sometimes my whole speech will shut down. But like before my diagnosis, I was masked and like I didn't stim. I would hold myself very still. And the thing is, like, the signs were always there, but I would just get clocked by autistic people that I was weird, but nobody really knew that I was autistic. And sometimes the masking can be so well done that you do just really appear to be neurotypical. Our brains are really good at mimicry. And number 5, which it's funny because I'm looking down at my list and I think I'm gonna do the bonus one at the end there because it's just so fun. Okay, number 5. I tend to write in long blocks of text without paragraphs and I have lots of tangents. And we'll use parentheses, ellipses, quotation marks. It's really common if you scroll through, you know, the comment sections of most of my videos, you will see long blocks of text. And by the way, long comments are always welcome on this channel because in so many spaces on the internet, we have character limits, or we have people telling us your comment's too long. What's the too long, didn't read? Like, we'll get really rude comments about how much we want to say and express ourselves. So your long comments are always welcome here. I do read all the comments that I get in. I don't have time to answer them all, but I do read them and I appreciate them and they help other autistic people. But just, it's a common autistic trait for us to write in long, big blocks of text. A lot of times I will now write in that big block of text and then I'll go back and try to add some paragraph breaks. And I think this happens because a lot of autistic people, two reasons. We'll over-explain because we're always misunderstood in life. So we're trying to get rid of that misunderstanding by putting all the words out there. And second is we're bottom up thinkers. So we like to give all the context and all the information, where autistic people are top-down thinkers and they start with a very small like premise and then want back and forth conversation to continue the conversation in small chunks of text. But autistic people are like, boom, here it is. And so it's just a conversational difference. And the bonus one, 6, is easily gets distracted. And seriously, while doing this video, like Echo kept distracting me. The sun was distracting me. Dogs walking by distracts me. And it takes a lot of mental and, you know, energy to like stay on topic. So easily gets distracted is an ADHD one, but I think is also an autistic. And there is a very high comorbidity of autism and ADHD. Someone like different reports, it's like between 50 and 70%, which is like a huge overlap. Studies show that if you're autistic, you know, you could very much well be have ADHD also. But there are definitely people with ADHD that don't have autism. I have met them and it's like, yeah, you are not autistic. And there are definitely autistic people who don't have any of the ADHD traits. So they are separate diagnoses, I believe, but there is a very large overlap. And a lot of people got diagnosed with ADHD because from what I heard is that insurances wouldn't allow doctors to diagnose both many years ago. So a lot of people would get ADHD because there are medications for that and there are not medications for autism. And the doctors wouldn't even disclose like, hey, I think you might be autistic too. They would just diagnose the ADHD and send the patient on their way. because I've heard lots and lots of stories now where people are like, yeah, I was diagnosed ADHD as a teen and now I'm getting my autism diagnosis. It's like ADHD answered some of their questions, but not all of their questions. So if you're ADHD and you kind of like wondered in the back of your mind, like, could I also be autistic? Then if you've wondered about it, then most likely you are. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out all the other ones in this playlist, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys. Echo. 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 You get the boops? You do the boops?